So there's this story that's often told where the harder you work, the more that you actually perform. And this is an easy logic because we're taught this in elementary school, we're taught this in high school, and much of how we structure sports, for example, is always the putting in more results in more, right? And the harder that you do that, the more that you actually get out of it. Except for if you start analyzing it, you can't do that for your whole life. And if you start breaking it down, you'll see that these so-called top performers are generally in one or two categories, right? So one of them is a very young, and there has been this sort of one-to-one relationship that has happened in their life, right? They're in their early 20s, and they see all of the benefits from putting in this effort. Now, the other thing that you're going to see, and it's along the same lines, it is a place of privilege to have that. And let me explain what I mean to have a place of privilege. What you don't see behind the scenes often of these so-called top performers is that there is a lot of parents, or their parents are working um, quite a lot to ensure that they can get practices and put in the time. You also don't see often uh, the amount of training that goes in, or having different coaches, for example, that goes in. And what you don't see is all of these things and then the other thing is that you don't have any injuries or anything along those lines. What you don't see is all of this stuff, that you're at a privileged position at that moment and nothing really has happened to you. And then everybody has given everything to you to be a top performer. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think this is real life. Real life, um, you have to scratch and claw and figure out a way to do the best that you possibly can. And at least in my life, at any given moment, there are ups and downs, and times where I can get to things, times where I just frankly don't have the energy to do things. And there's all of this stuff that goes on. If you look at the average person, you'll see that they're not athletes. They're not Olympic athletes, right? Like nobody's going to the Olympics here. Um, the average person is far from that. And the reason is they've got this logic that's imprinted into them that the harder they work, the better off they are. And it's easy to get demotivated. It's easy to lose track of things, of what's actually going on. And instead, what we often, at least for me, when I go through that logic, before I get to, the punchline here, but when I go through that logic, I don't want to do it, right? I don't want to do it for that long. I kind of give up because I feel like I'm spending all of my time doing this and I'm not seeing any progress. I see this a fair bit in different walks of my life, is that there's, so for example, some athletic thing or some band thing, or music thing or whatever, right? Like whatever you're into. And I see this where there is somebody that wants to get more out of other people than is physically possible, or that the individual just cannot provide what, the expectation actually is. And unless you have that fortitude to block all of that stuff out, most of us don't want to do that particular activity, right? And I think almost all of us can probably point to a moment in time where they quit enjoying the gym, right? Or quit enjoying the phys ed, PE, right? There is a moment in time. And because they were extracting, somebody wanted to extract more out of it. And so you kind of than what you can actually provide. And so you're scared of it, right? A lot of people become scared of it because of these awkward situations that they're put into, and they don't want to do it, and they don't want to put in that particular effort. You really see it a lot, particularly in adults where they're afraid of doing different things. So, what is the point here? Why am I getting into this? I'm getting into it is, instead of thinking of performance, why don't we just think about you do the best that you possibly can? And instead of thinking about performance, why don't we think about longevity and think about how can we, at any given moment, allow ourselves to enjoy something for a longer amount of time? Now, that logic is far different, right? If you imagine yourself that you're on a deserted island. Our family have mentioned this. We like to watch that movie or that show Alone or Naked and Afraid. We like these things. And if you look at the people that, they go out to the woods on this deserted island and they're supposed to spend as much time as possible. Almost everybody that goes too hard at the beginning, they're gone. They get sick, they get, tired, whatever, they're gone. But the people that have longevity, they kind of take it a little bit easier. They take it a little bit slower, and they repeatedly are able to get back up and get going. And it's always very surprising who those individuals are, right? It's the big muscular kind of guys that, the barrel chested kind of guys. Yeah, it's sort of typical stuff. They're the ones that go often very hard at the beginning, and they leave within a day or two, because of all these challenges that they go through. It's the little petite person that you would be surprised is there for a long time. And they're eating a little bit of berries, like what I'm getting at here is that there is a big difference between what goes on and the logic that you actually do when you're trying to do things for longevity, or you might call it survival. They're very, very different how you play the game. And you experience the game a lot differently. And now all of these different things that are going on in your life that you love, and enjoy, figure out a way to make sure that you enjoy all aspects of it, or as long as you can. And it's likely that it's not going to be maximizing your potential. And it's often discussed in, almost everything in pop culture, or almost everything, even in the business conversations, or even the literature I read. I think most of it is bogus because they're always talking about maximizing returns and things like that. That's kind of silly, right? If you think about it, why not, instead of maximizing returns and trying to pick the very best, why not just aim for what is possible and continue to go with that for a long time? All right, take care and have a wonderful